They say generosity is measured by how much you give. But what if the poorest man in the city gave more than the richest king ever could? Tonight, let me tell you a quiet story about a beggar, a king, and the true cost of giving. In an ancient city, surrounded by stone walls and golden towers, there lived a powerful king. He was admired by many and feared by some. His palace overflowed with silk, silver, and jewels gathered from distant lands. Each morning, servants prepared lavish meals, musicians filled the halls with sound, and scribes recorded the king's generous donations to temples and charities. The people often praised him, saying, "Our king is the most generous ruler who has ever lived." Not far from the palace gates, at the edge of the marketplace, sat a beggar. No one knew his name. He owned no home, no possessions, not even a proper bowl. Each day he sat quietly with his hands resting on his knees, his clothes worn thin by time and weather. Some people dropped a coin. Most walked past without noticing him. Yet every morning the beggar smiled at everyone who crossed his path, and every evening he shared whatever little food he had with others who were even poorer than himself. One day, the king announced a grand event. He declared that he would make the largest charitable offering the city had ever seen, a gift so great that it would secure his legacy forever. Gold was weighed, food was prepared, precious garments were stacked high. The city buzzed with excitement. On the day of the ceremony, crowds gathered near the palace. The king stood proudly before them, dressed in royal robes, his voice echoing across the square. "Today," he proclaimed, "I give to the people from my abundance." As the king distributed food and gold, cheers filled the air. But among the crowd, a wandering monk watched silently. When the ceremony ended, the monk did something unexpected. He walked past the palace, past the nobles, past the praising crowd, and stopped in front of the beggar. The monk bowed deeply. The crowd fell silent. Confused and offended, the king stepped forward. "Why do you bow to him?" the king asked. "I have given far more than this beggar could ever dream of." The monk smiled gently and replied, "Yes, Your Majesty, you gave much, but he gave more." The king frowned. "More?" he repeated. "He has nothing." The monk turned toward the beggar. "Tell us," he said softly, "what did you give today?" The beggar hesitated, then spoke quietly. "This morning," he said, "I was given one piece of bread. It was all I had for the entire day." The crowd leaned closer. "When I saw another hungry man, I broke the bread in half and shared it." The monk nodded. Then he turned to the king. "You gave what you did not need," the monk said calmly, "but this man gave what he could not replace." The king felt something tighten in his chest. For the first time, the cheers of the crowd felt distant. The gold suddenly felt heavy in his hands. That night, the king could not sleep.
He replayed the scene again and again, the beggar's calm voice, the monk's quiet bow, and the truth he could not escape.
The next morning, the king left his palace alone. No guards, no robes, no announcements. He walked to the marketplace and found the beggar sitting in his usual place. The king sat beside him. "I have spent my life giving," the king said softly. "Yet I fear I have never truly sacrificed." The beggar smiled, just as he always did. "Giving," he said, "is not about how much you lose, but how much love you leave behind." From that day forward, the king changed. He still gave gold and food, but he also gave his time, his presence, and his humility. He listened, he served, he learned to see people not as recipients, but as equals. And the beggar? He remained poor in possessions, but rich in a way few ever understand.